So as a brand new mum, here are my 5 things that surprise me about newborns. Number 1, they are so scrunched up. They're here, like arms are in, legs are in, everything's just tucked in. It is so hard to change them. I thought she was gonna be like limbs everywhere, like when they come out, like finally, freedom, I can move all of my limbs. I thought it was gonna be like that, but it's not. It's like, I have been in here for 9 months like this. Would you expect me to be any different? No. It makes sense that she would stay squished in and then eventually limbs would lengthen, moving, stuff like that. But I did not expect her to have like clamped in limbs, but it makes sense. Number 2, the umbilical cord. I feel like you read about it in like a paragraph in a massive book, and that's kind of it. And you're like, what do you mean the umbilical cord is still attached? So I didn't understand this. So I didn't know that we were going to come home from the hospital with the umbilical cord and then the peg attached while it was still attached to her, which obviously makes sense again now that you think about it. And I'm, well, where did I think it was going to go? But you've just got like the umbilical cord, and I think ours was about that long, and you have like this plastic peg on the end of it, and you just leave it. And it's just awkward, because where do you put it? When you dress her, do you put it, like, you can tuck it into the nappy, you can have it over the top, depends how long it is, I guess. They're all roughly the same size, but I wasn't expecting that. And especially when they say it can take however long it takes to fall off. It took 3 days in the end for ours, so we didn't actually have it for very long. But I think because it's for such a short amount of time, people don't spend time talking about it. And then when you mention it to people that have had babies a while ago, they're, oh yeah, like that did happen. And when hers fell off, we didn't really notice. She'd had it on for the previous nappy change. And then I remember I was downstairs and she had been in a blanket, and then I rewrapped the blanket and it was gone. It was just gone. We found it. I know exactly where it was. It was on the sofa, but it was weird. I wasn't expecting to have the umbilical cord home. I didn't really know what I thought was going to happen. I just hadn't ever thought about it before. So that was a fun surprise. Number 3, they're hard to carry, despite the fact that newborns are teeny, teeny, tiny. And don't weigh much. They're really, or at least our one, was really awkward to carry. And I think because they're so fragile and so small, you're like holding the head, holding the body, but like gluing them to your body, using your arms, and getting like everything involved for something that weighs like hardly anything. And for me, it was mostly when I was breastfeeding her that I found I was just there, like holding her head and holding her body, and it was really painful on my back. And I thought, she's so small, how on earth am I going to breastfeed a baby that's any bigger than this? But what I didn't realise was that as she gets bigger, she can also hold her own head up and stuff like this. So now we have a 6-month-old, and feeding her is the dream. It's super easy because I can just like put her on my knee and she's there. I don't really know what that says about me, but she's on my knee and she's having a good old time, and I can use that to support me. But as a newborn baby, she was harder to hold than she is now, which I was not expecting. Number 4, I didn't realise that we were going to be asked so many times about tracking every little thing. I didn't really realise that. So at the hospital and with midwife, we were asked to track like everything. Wheeze, poos, feeds, how long for, how often, just everything. Colours of poos, that's a new one. I've not had to track that before. So many things. We got a couple of different apps to help us track it. But I was so surprised. And at first, you have a newborn and there's so much going on that thinking about, oh, has she pooed, has she weed? Like, it's enough just to go and change a nappy for the first time. But then you're like, okay, 5:22, big poo. It was yellow or black or whatever colour it was at the time. And now it's yellow. Yeah. And it's just so bizarre. When you're a new parent, especially in those first days, and it's the first time you're changing nappies, the last thing you're thinking about is, let me write this down. Was it a big poo? Was it a small poo? Because you don't know what's a big poo and a small poo for a baby. And you have to write down the colour, and just there's a lot going on. I just wasn't expecting that. I mean, it throws you in at the deep end in terms of starting to talk about wheeze and poos. So that's nice. I like getting used to that, I guess. Luckily, we didn't have to track that for too long. I think it was maybe about 10 days with a health visitor. The only thing I did carry on tracking, because I'm breastfeeding, I was tracking which side I was on, and just now we're tracking her weight. So that's kind of the only thing we still do now, just like the weight chart, so we can see the progress going up and make sure she's in the right place for her percentile. But that's the only thing we check. But there was a lot of tracking at the beginning. I remember saying to my husband, what's she done? A wee or a poo? And he'll say what it is. And say, was it big? Was it small? What colour was it? Like, everything like this just... You open a lot of doors with that one, don't you? A lot of doors. Then the 5th thing that I didn't know is that babies' eyes go in different directions when they're born. They just Like you'll look at her and then her eyes just go, I don't know how that even happens. I didn't even know that was a thing, and it just takes a little while for them to kind of like adjust and for their eyes to come like back and look at things together. Hi, Charlie. And I think it took maybe a couple of weeks. Maybe I've written it down somewhere, but it wasn't all the time. But it was just a weird thing that I just wasn't expecting to happen. You sort of think, like, is she okay? Like her eyes are just going completely different directions, but apparently it's normal, and now her eyes are just fixing on everything and have been for a really long time. So that must have only lasted a few days or maybe a week or 2 weeks or something. I'll see if I've got it written down anywhere. But the last thing, which isn't really part of my 5, is just how lovely it is when they're so little and they sleep on you. And because hopefully you're able to be wherever you want to be with your baby, you can take that time when they fall asleep on you and just cuddle, and it's just so nice. And it's just the loveliest thing. And I read, obviously, that babies sleep a lot, blah, blah, blah. I feel like ours doesn't, but babies apparently sleep a lot. But when they sleep on you, it's just such a nice feeling, and you don't want to move. You just don't want to wake them up or disturb them or anything, because it's just, I don't know, just that feeling of having a newborn and looking down and just seeing just how content they are and hopefully happy they are. Obviously they're asleep, but we assume they're happy. And just that feeling of looking down, having them sleep on you, or like sleeping on family members, like it's just such a lovely feeling that I wasn't expecting. Pretty much everything about newborn surprised me because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I'm still muddling my way through. But if you have any other things that surprise you, let me know, because I'll probably be like, oh yeah, like you just forget things so quickly because things move on so quickly. But yes, let me know.